All right. Hello, hello. Welcome. Welcome to the live stream. I've got to do a couple things in the background for a few minutes, which will allow folks to filter in, hopefully, slowly here. Welcome to the stream. We're going to be talking about building critical muscle memory on specifically the diatonic harmonica. So that's what we're up to today. Like I said, just give me a few minutes to put some stuff in the background. It's also a holiday sale going. I'll just mention it quickly on the website today and through Sunday. Actually, you can use the coupon code July40 for 40% off of your order. So check that out. That sale is good for all the classes and guest artist classes, solo classes that I've taught, Global Blues Harmonica Summit, etc. All right, there is the stream. Okay, cool. Let me also just pin that in the stream real quick. Grab a A and a C harp just in case today. Those keys should work fine. And we'll jump right in. All right, there it is. Let's pin this. Excellent. All right, welcome and hello to those tuning in. Good to see you here. I'm going to dive right in and just talk about it. I got some notes that I created that are just kind of a guide for me. I'm not opposed to sharing these. They're just kind of bullet points and thoughts that I kind of jotted down ahead of time. I suppose I could show you some of this on the screen, but let's just talk. Let's just get into it and just get started talking about this topic and define first what is muscle memory. It's just this ability to move a part of your body, do something without thinking at all about it. So we get there by repetition. And not just any repetition, but accurate repetition that will lead to this end result that we want, whether it's a fluid movement or a particular bend to be in pitch that requires certain muscle memory to be engaged. So that's what muscle memory means. And I checked out this cool website, the Vibe Music Academy, and they had 3 stages they outlined. So I'm going to share that before I jump into my own thoughts. And as I read it, I thought, yeah, that actually makes total sense. There's a cognitive stage, there's an associative stage, and an autonomous stage. Cognitive is exactly what you think it would be. You're thinking about it. You're being very focused on this task, building muscle memory, going slowly, putting space. It's that conscious effort. So it's the most challenging part of building muscle memory. Just keep that in mind. If you're new to a technique and trying to build muscle memory, don't fret. Don't be turned off by the fact that it's taking a while. That stage is most critical. Then the associative stage, they define it as the more rewarding stage, characterized by being mostly based on repetition. Yeah, you're starting to get it, and you're just integrating and cementing that into your muscle memory. And the autonomous stage is when you can just playing gets easy. You're able to actually do this without any thought. I think that this whole process begins with something I talk about all the time, which is muscle memory. Self awareness as it relates to muscle memory. Self awareness in all aspects is a key part of improving and evolving in your playing. So if you're not recording yourself, you can't become as self aware as the next player. You've got to record yourself to get that self awareness. You're listening for things that you didn't realize you were doing, maybe subconsciously. And it could be catching good and bad things, but usually you're hearing things you're like, wow, I didn't realize I did that or sounded like that. So let's jump into ways to build it, and then areas of focus on where you can use the strategy of building more muscle memory. And before I do that, let me minimize this. What is that? Give me a sec here. Uh, okay. There it is. That's what I wanted. Oh, that's my page. That's why. Okay, cool. If you have questions, throw them in the chat as usual. And I'm going to go back to my page because it's not giving me what I want. So if you have a C and an A harp, I mentioned that earlier, just grab that as we talk. Let me see who's here. Thanks for being here. If you dig all the content I'm going to go through, take advantage of the sale. That's the way you can support me. July 40 is the coupon code for 40% off on harmonica123.com through Sunday. And welcome to the members and everyone else that's joining in. I see Rocket Girl and Rand is here and a bunch of other friends joining in. Thanks for being here. Here we go. So, area number one to think about is relaxation. How do you get your mind and body into a relaxed state so that you can work on building this muscle memory? I think part of it is clearing the mind, is clearing the physical environment. As I say that, I look around going, really, Ronnie? But I'm already past that stage. I'm in a different stage. So I think I've learned how to, I'm looking around saying, I think I've learned how to do that in my mess. But I think distractions of any kind, your phone being on, physical mess around you, something on your mind, jot it down, get your mind clear so you can get in a relaxed state. Often relaxation is a part of that awareness, recognizing tension as you play. Does it feel like I'm holding my shoulders up? Does it feel like I'm creating extra tension in my hands or in my mouth, wherever, when I'm trying to work on bending? Try to stay as relaxed as you can. Step two is huge. Go slowly. When you want to build muscle memory and you're going for this repetition, you're going to have to go slowly because you need it to be accurate. So let's say you were trying to build muscle memory for awareness of the blues scale on an A harp. Awareness of the order of the notes and what note you needed to hit. It's a little tangent from muscle memory, like physical muscle memory, but it's related. You would want to go slow, put space between it, be relaxed. You would want to work it frequently. This is the next key point. Muscle memory is built by doing something often. You can't pick it up once a day or every other day and expect to build muscle memory for something. You want to do it multiple times a day, short little bursts of practice, especially for things like bending. Getting at bending, it requires, I think, a lot of different things, but one of them is the frequency at which we practice. And lastly, record yourself so you know what you're doing so that you have adjustments you can make. So what types of things, and this is where we're going to jump in, and I'm cool with questions. So if you have questions today, please throw the questions down there. So you're trying to build muscle memory and you're thinking, well, what do I need to be thinking about? This is the meat of what we want to get into here, and also how to do it. But like, where do I need to be focusing on building this muscle memory? Well, embouchure is one of them. The way your lips and your mouth connect to the instrument is huge. And I don't think a lot of people consider that when they get started. They pick it up and just go for it right away without too much thought. So, do we want tension in the embouchure? Let's talk about that for a minute. Kind of, a little bit. A little bit of intentional tension where you're creating enough tension to create the shape. Let me talk about something very specific as it relates to building muscle memory in a pucker style. It's, again, a slight tangent, but it's totally related. Until I realized that I was subconsciously pushing in, putting some inward pressure with the instrument, my tone was inconsistent, and my ability to get the same sound on each note was inconsistent. The inward pressure alleviates the need for any sort of, it creates the final piece of the adjustment to settle the instrument into your mouth. So how much pressure is key. You're going to have to experiment with that. For me, it's subtle but consistent. I am using my left hand to apply a scale out of 1 to 10, like between a 1 and 2, that amount of pressure. A very subtle amount, but it's always there. Does everybody follow me on that? Let me know in the chat. If you're not, and same with tongue blocking. It's subtle, but there's an inward pressure and an attention to the corner of the mouth. These little subtleties are things that you can pick up on. And how do you get yourself to consistently do it? You are aware of it, you record it, you measure it, you evaluate, and then measure all that and then adjust as needed. But you're listening to see if you consistently can get to the point where you can do it without the thought. Same with any of those tongue blocking techniques we'll talk about in a second, but embouchure, that's a big one. But before you even think about embouchure, there's holding the harmonica. And by the way, with harmonica, you'll need to, let me mention one last thing that's big on building muscle memory is people often don't consider the shape. If you're puckering on a harmonica, there's a shape. You got to like whistle shape it. It's even more exaggerated than a whistle. A whistle is more focused and inward like this. But harmonica is more out. The lips kind of open. And that inward pressure is perfect because it hits the inside of the lip, that soft part where you're making that contact easy to move left and right. So playing around and being aware of all these little things in the beginning stages so that you can become consistent with your reproduction of sound. Okay, holding the harmonica, left or right hand and positioning. Well, I started with my right hand. How many people here picked up the harmonica and they were like, I started playing with the right hand? Anybody? Was it just me? And then they realized that maybe it would be smart to really consider moving it to the left. And that was my experience. Was that I had made accommodations that weren't working. Let me explain. My elbow was like this. My pinky was out so that I could cup the bottom of the harp, and it felt weird. Everything was awkward, and I wasn't totally aware of it because I was making it work. Y'all follow me? This guy, his name's Dan. Dan, thanks to Dan Trainer who pointed it out years ago, back in the late 90s, and he said, man, switch to your left hand, switch to your left hand. I was kind of frustrated and annoyed at first, like this guy's just telling me what to do, but he was right. And when I switched to my left hand, it didn't take very long to build new muscle memory, even though it felt like I was starting over, to get the harmonica settled, and then to approach from the left hand with adjustments in embouchure and all this. Okay? So if you're playing in your right hand, you should be playing upside down, in my opinion, 99% of the time, with the exception of a couple players that I know that are high level that can do it the other way, but I got something stuck in my tooth. It's a piece of broccoli, folks. Anyway, that's one of them, okay? It's a big one, actually. So let me check the chat. All right. Let's go back to our notes here real quick. So holding the harmonica is key, left or right, and then understanding like the way you hold it. Maybe you've built up muscle memory where you have been playing the harmonica. Let me show you what I used to do for the first 10 years. You can see it on YouTube. It's all over the place. I did this. Almost like tension in the fingers. They're so straight. And what does that do? It creates a big open space, which makes this null and void. Pretty pointless, actually. Very difficult to shape sound. I was able to do it, but it wasn't as strong as it is now. You can hear my progression once I figured out that I needed to relax the fingers. So let's build some muscle memory together with how we hold it. If you're going to hold it in your left hand like a lot of people, low notes to the left, what is the hand doing? It's relaxed. It's super relaxed with a slight bend on the finger that's on the harmonica, back against the lip as far as I can go, and this is relaxed. And they're together. So you start noticing every detail. Like there's not about a lot of gap. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I'm doing that. So no matter what I do, I have control. If I'm open, it's still open. But if I'm closed, I'm truly closed. I have other positions I use besides this, like this one. So I've built muscle memory for that as well, and you can too. Some people hold it like this, like a prayer style, like they're doing that. And some people, like me, I do a version of that where it's this finger, This is my pointer finger. I know I'm going in and out of focus here, but the pointer finger is over the harp. And so you start to pay attention to the way that you approach with your hands. And then did you see how the head started to turn? All these little details, if you weren't going slowly and in that relaxed state of mind and maybe doing some video recording to catch this type of stuff, it wouldn't sink in. You just go back to the same thing each time. Change begins with something different. We have to do something different so that we can get a different result. So start to analyze your playing. Make a few recordings and video and let yourself be free and just do it the way you want. And then go back and say, well, what was I doing when I'm not thinking? And then you'll catch these little things like, God, he's right. My fingers were like this, or I'm doing all this. And then we can make some of those changes. Posture is one of them that goes along with that. It's kind of related to muscle memory because if you think about players, they have stances they always go to. That's muscle memory, the way you carry your body. If you always remind yourself with each practice session to be relaxed but upright, shoulders back a little bit, of course that's going to change as you play. You'll start to slouch a little. But if you start with the reminder of upright and relaxed, like if you put a reminder on a note card, it's a good place to start each time. And if you started that way, eventually you'd end that way. One thing also I notice is a lot of unnecessary movement due to improper breathing. So if you're going a lot of movement with the shoulders, be aware of that. That's usually a sign of too much chest breathing. So you can change these things, but it takes critical analysis and awareness to do it. So posture is relaxed, straight, upright. And something that goes along with that is I'm going to just talk about this now. I had it lower on the list, but keeping time with your body. Is that not muscle memory that you can build? It is. Believe it or not, even though it's an inherent thing, timing, we're hearing correct timing and executing it. Our body is guiding us for better or for worse. So if there's no movement, there's nothing external that's following the internal, and vice versa, probably you could say. But if they work together, and I do this with my heels, I love moving left, right. So 1, 2, I'm tapping my heels, not the front of my foot, but the back of my foot. Everybody just try it with me. Left, right. Keep going. Left, right. So now I know where these little chords are going to fall each time. My body is guiding. And again, if you didn't practice this, it won't come out typically in your playing when you're actually just playing relaxed. So when you're in the zone, think about when you're in the zone, what are the characteristics that are happening? The brain's off. Something else is guiding you. It's that muscle memory. It's so fascinating to me to think about like the things that can happen when I get out of my own way and I stop leaving my brain active and paying attention to thought. In other words, thought's going to happen. You can't say, stop thinking. Sometimes it happens, but you can disregard it. Think about a mistake real quick. This is tangent, but when you play a mistake on stage, you either are interrupted by it and distracted and affected or not. That mistake is done. It's gone. I visualize it just, it's gone. I'm so focused on where I am and what's coming up that I don't have time for that. And you can practice that by disregarding a mistake. There it was. You can acknowledge it quickly and move. And the better you get at that, you don't even hear. A mistake is just something that you see it, but it doesn't affect you at all, if that makes any sense. I'm sure somebody could vouch for that. Any questions so far? Okay, good. So let's keep going down the list here. Let's talk about something very, very, like at the top of the list for muscle memory. You probably know what I'm going to say. Bends. It's the epitome of this muscle, crucial, critical muscle memory that we need as a diatonic harmonica player, and yet it's so elusive. We're doing something internal. We can't see what we're doing. It's all by feel, right? So here's some tips for you for getting really good at bends. and how we can work on muscle memory specifically. The number one thing I will say is if you're not working with another instrument, like a chromatic instrument or an app on your phone that's got a piano that you can hit the note and sustain it and hear it, then good luck. It's going to be very challenging. It can be done backwards, like almost like learning ideas and just paying so close attention to the bend in context. But in isolation is what I'm talking about. So when you're working on trying to bend and build good muscle memory for your individual bend, the best thing you can do is use the chromatic instrument like a piano, or if you have an app on your phone, that's what I use. You can isolate it and sustain it. Sustain is the best way to develop good intonation and develop muscle memory for each bend. That means those are going to be the notes that you'll use in a single idea. Okay? And by the way, just a quick mention here, now that I'm at the 20-minute mark, there's a huge sale on the website. July 40 is the coupon for 40% off any of my 120 recorded Zoom webinars and classes that include notes, etc. Use that code at checkout if you want to support me. It's a great time to go shopping at Harmonica 123. Okay. So let's talk about it from the perspective of an A harmonica. Let's talk about two full step bend. That one's elusive for a lot of people. I don't need these on. I had them on earlier to block some sound out, but I don't need them. I want you to really think about this. Put your whole body, your whole heart and soul into this for a minute. Embody that note. Don't just willy-nilly or randomly just go for the note. Really slow down. Relax. Think about just enough air. Don't move the tongue too far back. Let it actually, let's start with like what that would sound like if you didn't pay attention and you just went for the bend. It's too harsh. It's too loud. That's what I'm noticing. And it's probably flat of the actual note. So let's correct it. That feels good. It starts to feel good when it's right. And so the bend can be compared to 5 draw. Play relaxed. You don't want to pinch that single note. Maybe you're unaware of the tongue position, and so you're trying to compare something to a 5 draw, and you're playing, and that's flat versus saying ah and singing the note. That way, if you hear that note accurately, you'll play that 2 full step quieter, and you won't go past the bend. You can overbend it, so be careful. And then think about sustaining each one. This can be done in numerous ways. Like you could just play a pattern, like my 12-bar bending exercise video. That's repetition. Draw, half step, full step, blow. Hey. I'm so distracted, but not anymore. Okay. I won't say it. So draw, half step, full step, blow. You're doing that on the 1 chord. Just get those feet moving. And if you're like, I can't do that yet, I don't have that bend, we go back to the drawing board and just sustain. That's your half step bend. I have an association with the vibration of each bend, what it feels like. I pay attention to the vibration in my jaw and my chest, anywhere as extending the vibration as far as I can throughout my body, throughout my whole head, my skull, right? So that is ingrained in me that when I want to go right to that half step, I can hear the note, but I can also feel it. Now it's a real usable note in your playing. So you do the same with 3 draw. So one of the things I did early on was like we're doing here, individual half step bend practice, up and down, then sustains. comparing it to the keyboard. Da da da, hit the keyboard, then full step. Somebody out there can hit that note on an A on an A harmonica on a keyboard. Hit that note and tell me, where am I? And then the step and a half. Playing it quietly and relaxed. So you're building muscle memory mainly through sustain, I think. And then you would repetition through context after that. So we can do individual and sustain. We can do repetition of one idea, like, or a riff, a famous riff that has just one or two bends where you're analyzing how are these bends sitting in the riff. So let me pause for a minute. I'm being flexible with this term and topic of muscle memory because I think this stuff that I'm adding in is really connected. When you're in a rut and you're playing the same stuff over, isn't that muscle memory? It's muscle memory. You're playing your muscle memory, for better or for worse. You're playing those things that are familiar to you. So how do you get creative and how you break out of the rut? You develop new muscle memory. What does that mean in the context of playing new ideas and licks? It means that you'll have to learn to start on different notes primarily and change up the order of notes and the phrasing so that you are starting to say different things. And then you'll have new muscle memory. I was just talking to somebody across the street, a new neighbor who's a guitar player, and I actually might be connecting and doing some lessons with him. I thought that was cool because he liked the way I was talking about music. And I told him I teach harmonica. And he's like, well, you could probably teach me some things. And I'm like, yeah. We're talking about how to get out of a rut and build new vocabulary. And what it came down to, what I was trying to tell him is, well, analyze where you keep starting and where you end. And put your scale notes in front of you. So you're figuring out where am I avoiding and why. And build that new muscle memory. It is new muscle memory because think about it. If you always went to a 4 draw, that muscle memory is stronger than if you had to start on 2 full step bend. Here's another good one. Let me move away from bends and maybe come back. Breathing patterns are a muscle memory. It is movement. It certainly is tied into the nervous system and acquiring muscle memory in that, in a way, a little bit of a stretch perhaps, but check this out. If you don't analyze your breathing patterns, how would you get out of a rut also? Because don't they often dictate the notes that come up? A lot of beginners in cross harp, they're doing the drop low thing, but really what they need is more just draw notes. They just need to be able to go. Where it's more like a 70 to 80% to a 30 to 20% mix of draw to blow notes. And that's a new muscle memory in a sense because you're having to figure out like where could I get that new muscle memory of extending my breath? To start collecting an extra note at the end of your phrase and don't stop breathing in. So check your breathing patterns. Let's talk about, I'm going to go a little quicker through this area, but glissandos, hand movements, and head movements, this is really relevant. A glissando is when we slide down, like from like 4 to 2 is a very common area. So you want to pay attention. Am I moving my head, my hand, or both? I do both, and that's the most efficient way, I think. I think that's why it developed that way for me, is that I was paying attention to that as I was pushing to the left, like a typewriter, pushing to the left with this right hand, pushing my harmonica to the left. I was heading to the right, catching up to that area as quick as I could, right, to the note. If I didn't move, it's like a typewriter, like corn on the cob type style stuff, right? But if you move your head with it, you'll be much more efficient in your movement. So if you haven't thought about trying to develop this muscle memory, try to go where you're kind of looking to the right as you push left on the harp. So my right hand is pushing to the left, I'm kind of going to the right, and I'm headed to 7 draw. And try to repeat a simple phrase. This is just a pentatonic movement, scale notes. 7 draw, 6 draw, 5, sorry, 7 draw, 6 draw, 6 blow, 5 blow, 4 draw. So you repeat this slowly. Remember, it's built off of repetition and going slowly and awareness. All right. There's a simple one that you can think about. We talked about timing as it relates to the body movement stuff. And jaw movements is a small one, but it's one of the final points that I really think that people ignore is that your ability to, how can we say this? Your ability to have efficient movements for faster phrasing is going to rely on some of the jaw movement, like. So how can we develop it? Often the development of muscle memory it starts with a very mechanical movement, which is something that doesn't feel good to people. They're like, that I know that's not the sound I'm going for. Let me just show you my jaw. So getting the jaw to go left and right would be a good starting point. You're going, or catching the one draw with my jaw. It feels mechanical. It feels like something I wouldn't want to use at first. It doesn't feel fluid. Like a lot of muscle memory, it's built in those early stages. It's painful. Painful, like not actual pain, but like it's slow, it's arduous. And so you have to just be patient with the process and trust it. And then you incrementally speed this up. It's very slow at first. You're not going very fast. You're not trying to get like a, you're not going for, but you can start slow. All right, any questions? Think about make a list. Here's a good way to think about it. Tension is a good interrupter of building muscle memory. So relaxation is like step one. If you're not relaxed, it's hard. It's an interruption. So what are the things that you're thinking about now that we've talked about some of these things? Let me just see if there's any questions. Thanks for all the members tuning in, Rodney and Steve and Charles, Rocket Girl and Rand. If you want to be a member and you don't know what that means, just check out the join button underneath the video and you can learn more about the tiers of membership. And it's a great way to support me if you don't want to buy any classes at harmonica123.com. That's the other way you can support. Yeah, that's the big stuff I wanted to communicate today. Think about slowing down the process. Think about getting analytical and building this muscle memory from this space of just a relaxed space where you can think about, like, we didn't talk about tongue blocking as it relates to tongue blocking, but it's like step one is I need a piece of this technique to come out. So if you're wondering how do you start with tongue blocking and building a critical technique, muscle memory, for tongue blocking, it starts with being able to produce a clean single note. That's it. So however you can get that with your tongue on the harmonica, if you can go and get that with all of your tongue on the harmonica, covering several holes, all of the holes to the left and breathing out of the right to produce 6 blow. I'm covering 3 holes to the left, 5, 4, and 3. So if you can get that, then we can start to develop it. So step one is very sort of like just stacking a bunch of rocks, getting it to balance type of approach. I just need to get these things to balance for a minute so I can get this thing to come out. Then I can slowly develop it. For example, how far away the tongue is moving from the comb, how quickly it moves back to the comb. Let me say that again. How far the tongue comes off the comb is huge experimentation with building various types of muscle memory and getting a slap. And how quickly you decide to bring it back will determine often the articulation of that. Then you'd repetition, right? Slow and repetition. Slow and repetitious means we take one single thing and loop it. 5 draw, on and off. 5 blow, 4 draw, back to 5 blow. And you repeat that. Getting the timing down, getting the feet moving, being aware, just all these things start coming together. And when this happens correctly, you'll feel this sense, this feeling of like, wow, it's starting to happen. It's coming out without me having to try. It's coming out. So anything you do where it takes no effort, you've built muscle memory for that particular thing. But the question is whether you like that. Because I didn't mention this, but one of the toughest things you have to get through when building muscle memory is breaking bad habits and bad muscle memory that's not serving you anymore. That muscle memory is often associated with bends, the rapid tongue movements. The most guilty thing people are guilty of, the number one thing that I hear in a person developing on bending is that they're not being as intentional and slow with the movements. Remember, you're not just practicing individual notes. We didn't talk about it, but slurring or glissandoing type of bends means that I have to be aware and cognizant of slower movements, not just these darting movements that may produce a bend, but I want to produce specific bends and I might want to move in and out. So that type of thing. Breaking bad habits and bad muscle memory is tough. And here's the cool thing though. I did it with the right hand or the left hand I told you about. And there were other things along the way I had to adjust, but you can do it. Trust me on this. Once you get past the hump, you will then notice like, wow, once you have one itty bit of tangible feeling of like, this is getting a little bit easier and I'm getting new muscle memory, it's just going to go from there. It's going to take off. You're going to feel like, wow, like this is something that I can develop and now I get it. And you start bringing it into all the other areas of your playing. So there's a little talk on muscle memory. I'm just trying to play a little bit to get ideas of anything else that I might have forgotten. Here's a good one. Yep, this is why I do that. I'm a mixed player like the majority of people who play blues harmonica. Let me know in the comments, are you a mixed hybrid player when it comes to puckering and tongue blocking like I am? If you are, then you have a way to expand and develop the intricacy or sophistication. I have a class you could buy now for $15 with the 40% off. It's called Hybrid Embouchure Approach. It's a wonderful class because I'm sharing insights as to where I choose to depart from pucker and how I engage in working on connecting pucker to tongue blocks seamlessly. You can't tell often. You can't hear any sort of like, ooh, that feels disjointed. It's all seamless at this point. So you start to pay attention to, are there other areas where I can begin to build new muscle memory, let's say, with my puckering, where I should in theory, like here's a good example. For me it was, I'm not using any tongue blocking these days too much. This was years ago on hole 3. I tend to only do it 4 and up. This was years ago. I started tongue blocking really early in my playing, like in year 1.5 or 2, let's say. I started bringing in pieces, but I was still a pucker player like I am today. I pucker a lot, but I tongue block a lot more these days. And it starts with like one new hole. So you might say, okay, that's the 3. Maybe it's just moving back and forth between holes 4 and 3 to get used to that. Whoops, I missed it. I can correct that. That didn't sound right. Great, that's the sound I'm going for each time. 4 draw, 3 draw, just trying to apply the tongue on and off to each one. And then go, okay, well now I'm getting used to moving the head and getting down there and feeling what it feels like to have the smaller block on holes 2 and 1. Then you're like, can I bend it? Oh, I can bend a little. And then you start slowly developing this muscle memory with a little bit of application. I may practice this even though I may not play it that way because I want to develop and open up my ability to create that kind of texture and sound if I choose to. So that's the idea for today's talk. I'm going to catch up with the chat before I run today. Just to remind you, there's a big sale on the website, July 40 for 40% off of any full price class, guest artist class, or summit. It won't work on sale items, but everything else is game. Thanks for everybody that is here live. Yeah, well, Butterfield played it in the right hand, Charlotte, but he played, like I said, he played upside down. Same with Clark, William Clark. Same with a handful of other players. There's only very, very few pro players that I can think of. One of them is Carlos Del Junco that play, I think, I'm pretty sure, I hope I'm not saying this right, where he plays in his right hand, but it's from low notes to the left. That's very uncommon. And that's how I started. But again, for me, I couldn't figure out a good way. Carlos, obviously, super high level player, phenomenal player, has developed his approach based on this. And he has, on a high level, adjusted anything that we would have been a deficit to our playing. He made it like a strength. I think that takes a very unique person and player to be able to do what he did. And there are a couple others. But the majority of right-handed players are playing upside down, just to make it clear, the low notes to the right. Yeah, moving the head and the hands. Not for, Steve, just to be clear, not for every hole change. Sometimes it's mostly the hands moving the harmonica, but for larger movements, those bigger glissandos where you cross 3 holes or more, then it becomes imperative to consider both. Yeah, and we talked a little bit, J&L, about not playing too hard, playing softly. It's about your ability to be sensitive enough to understand the exact amount of air you need to produce the sound or technique and no more, so that technique isn't suffering and tone isn't suffering, because that's what happens when you apply too much air pressure. So it's your ability to be sensitive enough to that. And how do we do that? Develop that by practicing quietly and working on dynamic range. The ability to go from soft to loud back to soft again. Yeah, you can tongue block the lowest 2 holes by tongue switching. You can play out of the left side, or you can move all the way down. I can tongue block that way. It's a little weird, but you can tongue block every hole. Exactly, Charles says he blew a reed drawing too hard when trying for the deep bend on the 3. Does ear memory develop? Well, we call that ear training. Ear training and what's it called? That type of critical listening. There's a term for that that's not coming to me. But they're all interrelated. So yeah, in a way, absolutely. I knew a tune needed a B flat harp the other day. I knew it instead of picking it up. Right, your ear started to just hear that key of F or the B flat harp in context. That's a thing. That's more ear training than it is muscle memory, I would say. Yeah, but it's something that you can develop just like muscle memory, and you should be ear training all the time. It's totally okay, Charlotte, if you're not using bending, tongue blocking on the lowest 3 holes, no problem at all. So what's a good quick warm-up routine? Do you tongue block on a chromatic? Yeah, I tongue block almost everything on a chromatic. I almost never pucker. It's easier to play it, I think. Especially on a chromatic, there's no bending you're contending with or anything. What's a good warm-up routine? That's a good question. I would say a good warm up routine would involve multiple things like rhythm practice and single notes and dynamic range and relaxation and movement. So maybe something like this. In, out, out, in, out, out. So maybe you start with this rhythm thing, right? And you're recording yourself. You have your audio recording and maybe video recording going. Maybe you bring in the bass line for the one chord like I just did, but then go back to the rhythm. And occasionally when you're feeling it, go back to that single note line. You could practice that with pucker or tongue block. You can slowly integrate that at any tempo you want, right? So we can slow or speed this down, speed it up or slow it down as much as we need. Maybe bringing it, trailing it out. So I think a good warm up often involves something familiar, and a good warm up can involve a combination of rhythm and single notes. Another good warm up is just a bending warm up routine, like the one I mentioned was the 12 bar warming exercise warm up. I'll link this in the video description. I already made a video about it. I love this one because I'm using every bend except for one draw half step bend and 3 draw step and a half. Everything else is there. And I've got other ones that involve bending that are fun. They fit into a 12 bar format. Or another nice warm up, I'll give you one more to think about. Target practice, I call it, when you're just targeting repeating notes. You know, you just start with, put a metronome on. You could isolate various parts of the harmonica if you wanted and just go back and forth. 2 draw to 6 blow, or 1 blow to 4 blow, octave notes, repeating notes. These are not glissandos. I am taking my lips off each time. Those are nice warm-ups. Anything that makes you feel like either like it's familiar, but I want to fine tune it, or I want to develop something and it's a very small chunk of something like the 2-hole exercise. Draw, half step, full step, half step, draw, and you just repeat that and catch your breath each time. All right? Those are my thoughts. See if I missed anything else. Thanks, Rodney. Appreciate it. I'm glad you like the front and back porch sessions. Those are the 2 of the most popular classes on the website. If somebody's looking for a suggestion, check out the front porch part 1 and 2 and the back porch blues harp. They teach you how to play that kind of. And the back porch is more like. They outline often 12 bars, but they're more phrase oriented. Yeah, of course, Sunshine of Your Love. And there's other melodies on the bottom that are great warm ups for bending. Thanks, Charles. I hope you'll anybody who's interested in learning blues harmonica will take advantage of this coupon and shop on the website sometime between now and Sunday. The coupon is July 40. It's pinned to the top of the comments section. I'll put it also in the description in a minute. Thanks, Rodney. Appreciate that comment and thought. Um, Thanks everybody for being here live. It was great to connect with everybody live here today. By the way, it's making me think of one last little kernel of insight to provide you. Sometimes muscle memory begins with just those tiny little statements, and you develop that, and then you find a million ways to use the thing. Make sense? Like this is like 5 draw bend to 5 draw, back to 5 draw bend to 4 draw. So you might start by learning that, and you built the muscle memory to play it like that. And you're like, oh, I love this. How can I use it? Okay. Then you can work on application, different ways to bring it in the middle of a phrase, or various ways to start it at the beginning of a phrase, and what are the various endings you could come up with. And it goes on and on. So you're constantly going deeper and seeing another layer of muscle memory inside of the new muscle memory. So that's what I got today. Oh yeah, don't forget, we've got a great class coming up, a guest artist class with Shane Sager, July 20th. Is that right? Saturday. And that is going to be a wonderful class to catch, July 20th at, I think we have it down for 12 p.m. Central, but I need to double check that. You can sign up on the website. You can check it out, and it's on sale right now. He's going to be talking about anxiety and nerves and fear and how that relates to improvisation, ways to work on that, ways to move through it, work with the nerves to improve your improvisation. But it's all about that anxiety. How do we get out of that paralysis state and into making music? It's going to be a great class with Shane, and who knows better than Shane? He's been on stage with Sting for years. Imagine the crowds he's been in front of, you guys. If he knows something about, if anybody knows something about this topic, it's Shane, is what I'm trying to say. I hope you'll have a great day. I hope it was a good 4th of July for those that celebrated, and thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate that. All right, I'm going to sign out. Make it a great one, and thanks for checking out the sale. I'll see you guys soon.